Bye-bye.
All right, we're going to go back to Tika now.
Human beings have 5 ways to take things from this out there and get them in their brain. 5 ways to take data from the world around you and put it in here so you can use it. You can process it, you can understand it, you can appreciate it. So the number 1 way, notice how it's separated from all the others. It's special. Do this, be an artist. Visual data. Visual data is the most powerful incoming data. It is what human beings prefer, and it is what they want first in any way of collecting data. They want to see something first. It allows them to see it, and then they can start to think about what they want to do next. But what you see is the most powerful sensory input that you're going to get in your brain. But here's the interesting thing about vision. Show me what you see with. Point to what you see with. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Put your hand back here. This is where you process in your brain what you see. So brain activity in the occipital area, the back of your brain, is where you process visual input. There's a little bit of distance there, isn't there? What connects the input system to the processing system is wiring. And in dementia, all wiring goes on the fritz and then dies. Just so you know. So there's a lot of wiring here. It's complicated wiring. It's actually fairly complicated because how many eyes do you have? 2. So you've got to take in data from 2 eyes, integrate those 2 pieces of data, process it, and then make sense of it. So all that's happening in the back of your brain. I'll show you in a few minutes. There's a huge amount of your brain devoted to visual processing. It's huge. There's also wiring between what you see and some other parts. Second way that you get data in your brain, take your index finger. Oh, look at how it points to things. What you hear, auditory incoming. Auditory data is the second most important way that human beings get data into their brain. Auditory. But if you hear a sound off to the side, what will you immediately do? Look, because this is primary. This just alerts you to go look and see what it is you want to see. So when it comes to dementia, visual then auditory. People with dementia pay more attention and are getting more value out of what they see than what they hear. This is secondary, this is primary. Guess what caregivers like to do a lot though? It isn't. Y'all love to run your mouth. You think they're paying attention to what you're saying. What they're doing is watching you when you're saying it. And they're picking up on your visual cues, but they're missing the content cues. Do this. So take the weapon that you've created, put it to your head, and pull the trigger. Because what happens is we think they're processing what we're giving them verbally, and what they're really processing is how we look visually and how we sound, but not necessarily the content. And because we're not on the same page, they're not getting this, they're getting this. We think they're getting this. This is not going to match. Who has to change? We do. So we have to use less of this and start with this. And learn to use visual more than auditory. Third way you get data in, auditory. Put your hands right here. Your temporal lobes. Both sides are involved, but they're very different. This side is very different than this side. How many ears do you have? 2. All forms of dementia, all forms attack the brain asymmetrically. It means it attacks one side of the brain more than the other. That's how it works. It hits one side and then it spreads more. So what happens in general, the left side of the brain is generally attacked sooner and faster and more devastatingly than the right side of the brain. We don't know exactly why, but most patterns of dementia attack, you're going to see more on the left than on the right. Left, right, language areas, but they're different. We'll come back to that in a little bit. Third way that you get data in your brain, take that middle finger, drop it down, and touch it to the back of your other hand. Now this is actually complicated, and this is one of the most complicated, and it also takes up a lot of brain space. This is sensory motor. You feel something, you do something, you do something, you feel something. They're wired together, so that when you feel something, if you like it, you do more of it. If you don't like it, you stop doing it. So when you feel something, you do something to change or encourage or facilitate what you're feeling, and if you don't like it, you don't do it anymore. Here's the biggest challenge of dementia care. Turn to the person next to you. And if you will come up this time for me, Sharon. Thanks. All right, now what we're going to do is eliminate vision and we're not going to talk. Okay, so we're taking away two of the ways that you would normally be able to get data into your brain, and I'm just going to use that third way. Oh. Go ahead and do that so you get the feel of what it feels like when you're doing this. So you can already tell where I'm going with this. This is not a good one to start with because most people are not fond of the idea of starting an interaction like this. And I do this particularly so you'll start to get the idea, no touching until you've done a visual, verbal, and only then are you allowed to do the touch. You got to make sure they come together. So here's what we're going to do. You close your eyes. People with dementia, put your hands behind your back because I want you to feel incredibly vulnerable.
Don't worry, we're going to role play this in a
That's what this disease does. It robs your skills, so you suddenly are pretty vulnerable. And you thought you were confident. Okay, so caregivers, here's what you're going to do. You watch me and do to them what I do to my person. Okay, y'all should have your eyes closed. There should be no peeking. Notice how many of you opened them up to see what I was up to. Yeah, they're sneaky like that. Okay, you ready? We're going to use these. Okay, you ready?
Just watch what happens. That would feel terrible.
And now, one more. Yeah, I'm going to pause you.
All right, so wow. Don't worry, we're going to role play. But first of all, we're going to review it a little bit. So what is the number one way of sensory input? Visual. What is the second way? Auditory. All right, I have a couple handouts for you here. They're each. Everybody gets one of these. So we're going to take a look at the brain here. So the first one is.
I'll give one to
Renee. Yeah, so it's between normal and the Alzheimer's brain. So what is the difference here between these two?
Alzheimer's brain is smaller.
Is smaller.
It looks like it's more worn out.
Yeah,
More
it
worn
does.
different colors.
Different color. Yeah. So it kind of takes on the same way anybody with Alzheimer's, but everybody has a different path. I mean, we get questions like that, or what's going to happen next, and everything. But it definitely takes. They aren't able to do what they used to could do. So now look at the next one. She talked about vision on here. Now look at, and she talked about how far vision is from the front to the back. So vision, the edges of the vision, the peripheral field. So, people with dementia, and as we get older too, vision is less.
Yeah.
So, but the peripheral is less.
Yeah.
The depth perception. Have you ever had somebody come in a room, especially if it changes from carpet, and you're like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that changes. And then, they don't know what things are. They can hold this up, but they can't identify what it is.
Or what it's used for?
Right.
Okay.
Right. What it's used for.
Okay.
So it's slower to process, and then it's kind of actually like a scuba, especially as the dementia progresses, you often see people looking down. But you can still see, now if you look at this vision one, you can still see in the middle field, so they're able to see everything. And this is a big thing, looking at and curious. So they're still curious, just like a child is curious. I was thinking about when you hear and when you see. Yesterday I picked up somebody from the nursery and I just said their name. They were turned around. She immediately turned around because she had to look
Yeah.
to see me because she could hear me. So they go hand in hand. So now we're going to pair up. We're going to try that little exercise that she did up here. We're going to eliminate these two things, your visual and your hearing.
Yeah.
So do you want to pair up with Renee back there?
Sure.
All right, so you decide which of you is going to have the dementia.
I will.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm
both
sorry.
went the same way at the same time.
All right, so you're going to use these two fingers, okay? Your skill fingers. Everybody know what the dementia person
feel
is?
it, or do you want
And
to
what?
Feel it. Okay.
The people that are the care to do exactly what I do. Okay, I don't need them to work on it, but just do what I'm doing. Okay, stop. All right, how did that make you feel, the people with dementia?
Like you want to wipe it off.
Yeah.
It's kind of cringy.
Mingy,
Feels like worms or something.
you can open your eyes.
Didn't it feel worm?
How did you feel, Chris?
It felt weird, like irritating.
Irritating.
Startled too.
Yeah.
Sure.
I kind of was waiting to see what would happen.
All right, we're gonna switch roles, okay? All right, so the people that don't have dementia, look at me and do what I do to myself again. All right, stop. How did you feel on that one?
Well, I knew somebody was gonna come that time just because, you know, we'd already done it once, but
Right.
you didn't know where to expect it next and you were on alert, sort of
Yeah.
anxious, yeah.
Anxious.
Oh, yeah, you would be very anxious.
You would, you know. Scary, scary,
Yeah.
scary. Okay, I want you to just talk with your partners and decide what is it, now the person you're talking about when you were the dementia person, what is it you wanted to do?
I wanted to
I just wanted to
swipe it away.
I wanted to open my eyes, for sure. Why?
Trying to figure out
Yeah.
Yeah.
what was going on.
So you didn't necessarily
Yeah, so
feel
that's-
like getting rid of it?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe
I didn't understand it was coming.
Or like what you were doing, like why are you touching my hair
Exactly, I
and
was
my
like,
shoulders
yeah, it's like,
and
what's going on?
there's no process.
The second time it was a little bit more challenging.
Yes.
too.
And eye contact.
Patting on the shoulders and I was like, okay, what's gonna come next?
When they can't see, it's really difficult. Yeah.
All right, good. So now we're going to talk about how do you think our people with dementia feel if someone would come approach them like that?
Well, they're scared already because they can't
Yeah,
see or.
yeah. And so, you know, what is our main focus of doing these exercises? So why did we kind of do this role play?
To understand where they're coming from.
Right.
Yeah.
When we're in the process of doing something to them, right?
Yeah.
Right? So we're doing to them instead of with them. So have you ever seen examples of this in the nursing home?
I don't even think we realize that most of the time. You know, we do think we're doing the right things by helping them with their cares.
Right.
It makes more sense that we need to approach things in a little different way.
Right.
Well, and you know, even if they can see and hear, they don't think of it as we do. They can't process it correctly. So even if they have full vision and full hearing, they're like scared what's going on. So you can't just say, okay, because of vision difficult, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's out of the box. It's dementia that causes. Yeah.
And it would be nice to see your caregiver, if I had dementia, see your caregiver's body language when they're doing something with you.
Yes.
So even if you didn't quite understand,
Right.
you could see how their approach is. If they're smiling, maybe you
Right.
trust they're touching your hair for a reason.
Yep.
It's just with our eyes closed, there was no context as to who this person was and what they were doing to me.
Right. Right. We get so task oriented.
Oh.
The other example I was thinking of, sometimes I've seen it, and I know you guys have, somebody comes up behind someone
Oh, yeah.
pushing a wheelchair.
Oh, yeah.
They don't know. The other thing I thought of is you may come up to somebody and just grab their hand. You know,
Oh, yeah. Come on.
even though they haven't really made contact with them. So, how can we apply this to our jobs?
Well, we could definitely be as much in their middle vision as possible
Right.
and take time to use our voice a little to, you know, hi Cindy, you know, in ways for,
Explain who we are and what we're going to do, right?
Yeah. And with one of the residents at first floor, I go and invite and wake her up because she's asleep in her room, and then I give her 10 minutes and go back. It's a totally different story. Once she knows, okay, now I got this idea. Otherwise, it's what do you want? You do like this.
too much at once.
Too much at once. So I think if you can, but a lot of people don't have time. You know.
Well, maybe we need to, like you said, reorganize our workday. So
Yeah.
you do that, then you say,
want to approach a little bit differently,
Oh, yeah.
like Marilyn said, approach from the front.
Yeah.
Use friendly body language, and use some verbal direction, but maybe less words.
Yes.
So maybe say, let's brush hair, or time to brush teeth, or something, you know, and show them the toothbrush. Just seems like just to be verbal, but maybe limited in the words, so that they're taking in what you're visually showing them, and then maybe those words help enforce that a little bit.
And
I think our
voice.
tone, yeah.
Yeah,
Tone
friendly.
is everything.
Yeah.
Really thinking about
Oh,
how it
boy.
sounds,
Yeah,
because I think that's a big
oh, huge. You
thing
hear,
we forget about.
yeah, you'll hear people say, it's time to eat. And it's like that, you know, and it's like, yeah.
And that's because we have so many tasks, so
I know
maybe
it
giving
is.
permission to people that we have to take the time to do that, and we'll have a better outcome. We need to model it too.
We need to model it, absolutely. Or if we see a frustrated worker, help them. If you can help them in any way, you know, just kind of be there for a backup or whatever. Yeah.
Great idea. So we're going to move on to talk about doing instead of two with